Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar, how to uplevel your product discovery practice with Jira Product Discovery. My name is Tanguy, I'm the head of product for Jira Product Discovery. I've been at Atlassian for the past 10 years and I've spent the last 3 working on this product. I basically have the privilege of, as a product manager, creating a product for product managers. So I get to work with you every day. That's pretty awesome. We've probably, with many of you actually, we've probably already met via a user interview or via response in a community group somewhere. You might have seen a video in some of the FAQ sections that we've got where on Loom I try to explain how to do X, Y, or Z in the product, or we might have interacted via support ticket. Basically, the whole product team in Jira Product Discovery talks a lot with you, and the reason we're doing this webinar is a lot of what came out of those discussions is you tell us you love the product, but that you would love more guidance in the ways of working that come with it. So there's a lot of very aspirational content that exists out there for product managers, but it's often not super practical to understand, like, where do I get started? How do I become a better product manager, like 1% better every month? So here we're going to try and make it super concrete, right? We're going to take the concrete example of the Jira Product Discovery team, how we do product discovery to create this product, and how we use Jira Product Discovery, the product, as part of that. So it's going to be a mix of theory / principles that we used in slides and practical demos in the product. So before we get started, a couple of practical things. One, this webinar is being recorded right now, so don't worry if you miss something, if I speak too fast, if my French accent is too hard to understand, don't worry about it. You can listen to it again later if you've got the patience for it. Or you can share the link with your colleagues if there's something that you find interesting. It assumes, this webinar, that you already have a basic understanding as to what Jira Product Discovery is, probably have already played with the product. So we're not going to do like a 101 demo of it, and instead go straight into how we use it in a live environment. Okay, let's get started. All right, so what's our agenda today? The first one is we'll talk about what is product discovery to align on that term. The second is I'm going to introduce you to the team behind Jira Product Discovery and our current scale, so you can compare and see whether what we're doing could match your environment. Then we're going to talk about how we do road mapping, how we work with users, and how we do delivery, testing, iterating. So basically, how we do discovery, delivery, continuous loops. So let's start with the first item, which is what is product discovery. So let's start with something there, which is let's just get it out of the way. Being a product manager is really hard. It's very easy to get trapped in a hamster wheel. Many of you told us about being so focused on execution that you had no time left to think about the more strategic stuff, knowing that your companies were, hired you to make an impact at that level that you're not able to make. We heard from you that you struggle to bring everyone together in the prioritization process, that too many decisions end up being made based on gut feel or loud opinions from, different parts of the organization, and that you're spending way too much time creating custom roadmaps, ad hoc status updates, that just really this hamster wheel stuff that takes you away from doing what you want to do, which is to make an impact. And to make matters worse, our job is really tough as product managers because of something that someone pinpointed 10 years ago and that is still not accepted out there. Marty Kagan, back in, I think it was 2010, was already talking about the 2 inconvenient truths of product. And the first such truth is that half of product ideas will fail. I'm a living testament of that. In my career as a product manager, I can list all the projects and products I worked on, and I can tell you half of them failed. Easily. They either failed massively, or they just didn't quite deliver what we were expecting from them. To make matters worse, even the ones that will work, which is half of them, even the ones that will work will take many iterations to get right. So one, if someone tells me we should take that bet. Make it successful. I'm like, well, yeah, there's just a 50-50 chance it's going to work. And two, I'm not able to say, yeah, that bet is going to work by this date. Because it's going to take many more iterations to get right. Maybe when we start, the experience is not great, customers don't understand what we shipped, there's usability problems, the value doesn't quite match what we thought people would want to use it for. There's a lot of reasons why it will take many iterations to get right, and you might not even get there. The problem is that that stuff is not accepted by most of the organizations out there. And we heard that from most of you. You are asked to create a predictable path to success for every idea, and it's just not possible. It hurts in many aspects because what ends up happening is product managers end up overcommitting on ideas that they just don't know whether they are going to work or not, and fail way too late in the game after very big investments. And that basically creates this mismatch between what the business expects from you and what you're actually able to do. Because, well, you should be able to stop the bad ideas early to make way for the ideas that themselves will succeed. So where to from here? What do we do when we start from this realization that those truths are truths and they are not things that you can bargain or negotiate with? That's where product discovery comes in. That's the better way to manage this. Product discovery is the act of assessing continuously what the team should focus on and why, not over-investing too early, and focusing on learnings based on discussions with customers, data, learnings that basically not just opinions or gut feel. For product discovery to work, it needs to involve more people in the company. It's not just like a PM and a stakeholder. And it needs to be done continuously. So we build Jira Product Discovery to support this process. In its essence, Jira Product Discovery is a prioritization and road mapping app. It lets product teams capture and prioritize ideas and align everyone on product roadmaps, all in Jira, using a product discovery process. So, a little bit more about us. What I want you to understand here is what's our scale and how big are we, how we're organized, so that you are able to see whether what I'm going to present now can apply to you or not. It might be that your context is very different. So you can always put back the practices that we used and what you'll see in the product back to that to make that decision. So we are a small team. This was a photo that was taken not so long ago. I think the team grew recently to close to 40 people, and we have 25 engineers working on the team. They're organized in 4 squads, which are autonomous units, autonomous teams with design, product management, and engineering and product marketing. And there is a leadership squad there to support them. So we are a relatively small team in a much larger organization, but with the full autonomy to make the decisions that we need to be able to make this product successful. All right, so with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. First topic, how we think about roadmaps. So the first thing is that you will never see us present a Gantt chart, because a Gantt chart basically focuses on the wrong questions for us. The Gantt chart tries to answer what is going to ship by when. But what is going to ship by when is irrelevant for us. We're here to make this product successful. For that, we need to make product managers successful. And so we need to be able to test that what we're doing is helping them in that way. If we are doing something that is not being adopted, or we are doing something that people are confused about, we need to change these things. It doesn't matter whether we set a deadline or not. We basically don't have time-based delivery plans. Instead, we have roadmaps that focus on the why. We try to really explain via those roadmaps, why are we focusing on something? What's the benefit that we expect to get out of it? And what are the things that we're going to try to make it happen? So for that, we've got 2 levels of altitude. Think 2 types of roadmap. The first level of altitude is the roadmap that we'll share with our stakeholders externally to the team. And the one that we have inside the team to basically describe our biggest bets. And then we've got the second level of altitude, which is more like each team's roadmap, and how they're deciding to go after it to hit the goals that are given to them. So that's the second principle. The third one is we have 3 levels of commitment. We don't talk about Q1, Q2, Q3. Instead, we talk in terms of now, next, later. Now is all the things that we commit to doing and that we're actively working on. Next are all the things for which we have already a pretty good idea of solutions, but we need to sequence. And later are all the opportunities that we're eyeballing, but we're just not quite sure what to do with them yet or how to tackle them. We don't really have solid solutions yet. A second thing to understand about how we created our roadmap is that we don't actually use the Jira status field. Instead, we use this thing called the stage field. It's a custom field in Jira Product Discovery, and it's got 5 values. It represents the stages that ideas go through. So the first one is wonder, when we want to make sure that we've landed on the right problems for our users, which is you. Second is explore. Explore is all about making sure that we've landed on the right solution, testing these solutions up until we are confident that they're going to work. Third is make, which is to test these solutions with a small number of customers up until they deliver on the value. Impact is when we then take those ideas that worked well in working software in Make, and we now try to make it work for a large number of customers. And scale is when the idea graduates to be a full part of the product. We do this, so we follow these stages for ideas at various sizes. Jira Product Discovery itself is a program of work at Atlassian that is currently in the scale phase. Before that, we went through Wonder, Explore, Make, Impact, Scale. And the features that we're building typically follow the same process as well. Now, these stages are not like a waterfall process. So it's not like first you do Wonder, then you do Explore, then you do Make, like linear this way. Sometimes we start building something and then it doesn't quite work. So we go back into Explore because we need to rethink the solution. And when we rethink the solution, we realize, fuck, we didn't really think about the right problem. And so we need to redefine the problem, work more with customers and go back. So it's more like it's not that linear, basically. The third thing to understand in how we think about our roadmap is we think of it in terms of like allocation of resources towards bets. And we want to make sure that we have the right hierarchy of priorities there. So now that we are operating a software that's used by thousands of companies, we cannot afford to just focus on features. So instead, we've got this pyramid where we've got reliability at the bottom. Whatever we do, right, the first thing that we need to ensure is that when you come in the morning and you log in, you can open Jira Product Discovery and you can work in it. If it doesn't work, if there's an incident, those things basically erode trust in the system and then you won't want to use it. So the first thing that we want to make sure is that the system works and scales well. That's the reliability bucket. Second is improvements. There's no point in keeping shipping new features if the current features that we've got, they're not discoverable, you don't know how to use them, they are too hard to use, they don't deliver, they don't do the thing that you expect from them. So that's the second bucket. And the third one, the top of the pyramid, is new features. And our current allocation is basically 30% for each. All right, so let's jump straight into a demo for road mapping. So I'm now in Jira Product Discovery, and that's the Jira Product Discovery that we use in the Jira Product Discovery team. As you can see, we've got a bunch of different views. So let me just give you a little bit of a quick tour here. So we've got a section of views here that we use for roadmaps. We've got another one that we use for like user feedback, and we've got a bunch of different views here. And then we've got views that look at different aspects, like what are the things that we launched recently, or what are customers telling us when we talk to them. Who are our competitors and how do they, what's the traction that they're getting, or even links that we just bookmark to get back to later. Now, we differentiate the things that are in each views. So all of these things are ideas, in that's the only object type that we support in Jira Product Discovery today, but there are different types of ideas, if you will. So for example, this bookmark thing right here, if I go to filter to see what's there, you'll see that we use a field called type. And this field contains like a few different values there. So is that a bookmark? Is that a market player? Is that a customer? Is that a boulder, an idea, a problem, a solution? So this is how we go around the fact that the system in Jira Product Discovery is pretty flat. It's only ideas at one level, and we actually create different types for those. And every view that you create is for different types. So for example, if I go into our roadmaps, this one, what we'll see, the type is boulders. And if I go into this roadmap right there for a specific team, and I look at the type, in this one it's ideas. So let's look at these roadmaps. I talked about two levels at which we do our roadmap. This is the top level one. This is the one we share with our external stakeholders. And that's the one that we agree on as a team. Where are our bets? And so the way we define it is there are different themes. So for example, there's a theme that's called growth engine. So let's make sure that people can discover that this product exists. There's a theme called jobs to be done, which is all about like making sure users have a delightful experience, whether they are product managers or administrators. And there's a theme called engineering foundation to make sure that we can basically make the system scale. In each of these themes, we've got what we call boulders. So for example, one of the boulders in jobs to be done is product manager jobs to be done. Each of these boulders have got their dedicated roadmap. And they are handled by specific teams. So we've got Sirius that's working on product managers' jobs to be done, Aurora working on administrators' jobs to be done, and Adoption, Juno working on what we call Better Together, the integration between Atlassian products, and so on and so forth. So if I open any one of these ideas, which in this case are boulders, I see that there's a little bit of a description for it. There's a description of the things that we're tackling for it, and we have a few different fields that we use for every idea. So the type, there is a theme. So in that case, the theme is jobs to be done. And then we've got this concept of focus area, roadmap, and stage. We'll go to those a bit later. So this is our first level roadmap. So we filtered here to only show the boulders grouped by themes. And what we're telling here to our stakeholders is, listen, in the next 6 months, this is what we're focusing on in terms of bets, right? And allocation of resources per bet. And later, we'll do the following things. Then if you want to know more, there are sub-roadmaps for those, one for each team. In product manager jobs to be done, for example, what we've got is this one, a boulder, which is product manager jobs to be done, and 2 focus areas, right? So in there, we've got the new features. Actually, I renamed that recently, so I might as well do it here. New features. And improvements. Okay, so in new features and improvements, we've got a roadmap for now, next, later. Now are the things that we're actively working on now. So for example, you might be aware that we have a feature we're working on now to help you share any roadmap, any one of these views with anyone in your company or with customers or stakeholders. It's currently in an early access program. It's this feature right here, creating a share link, right? And so it's currently in the now section. And then we've got a bunch of opportunities for next and later. So that's for this one team, but then other teams have other roadmaps, like the administrator jobs to be done is, for example, focusing on project automation and backup and restore. Now, each of these ideas here have got those field values. So type, idea, theme, jobs to be done, focus area, one of those, which we group by, and then when they are in the roadmap, which is now, next, or later. And as I've described earlier, what you're seeing here is the stage of the idea. So there's wonder, explore, make, impact, and scale. So that's currently how we do our roadmaps. Let's go back into the presentation. Okay, second topic where we get a lot of questions about is how we work with users. And I'll tie it back into, okay, so now how do things move in the roadmap? So how we work with end users? Well, a large number of questions from you actually come from this. So how do you collect and organize feedback? And there's a lot of you that have asked at some point, like, wait, did you have a user-facing portal? Like, can we make a feature request and then just upvote and downvote, and then you build the stuff that we ask that gets the most vote? We decided as a product team not to work like that. I'm actually still traumatized from being a product manager on HipChat and using a product to do that. And here's what was happening for us back then. We had customers suggesting features without context. We don't know why they need these features. They just want the feature. And then they would vote, and customers would upvote stuff, and there's always going to be like first, second, and third idea that's top voted in that list. And then the expectation from customers, of course, is, we put that in front of them. The expectation is this team is going to build what we ask for, right? But it doesn't always work like that, and you know that. Sometimes it doesn't align with like strategic initiatives in the company. Sometimes you're tied up doing things like working on scale, or re-implementing parts of the service because it doesn't work well enough, or you are currently testing features with a limited number of customers when not everyone can see them. And there's a number of reasons why you might not build something, but it's very, very difficult to keep that expectation in check when people just keep voting and commenting. So customers would go in there and keep adding votes, and inevitably what was happening is someone would start saying, Atlassian never listens to us. Look, this stuff has been top voted. It's been open for a while, and so why isn't it done already? At some point, we might get to it, start working on it, ship it, and then what does happen? The number one idea on the list, we ship it, it disappears from the list. Number two takes its place, it's the new number one. And we still have a number one, number two, number three, and people are still angry that we're not shipping those three. And that stuff just kept happening. And what we realized is it was just not delightful experience for anyone involved, not for customers, not for the product team. Our initial plan with this was to create transparency so people can feel like they're involved in the product making process and could basically get a moment of delight anytime we ship something that they ask for. Instead, what we ended up with is frustrated users and frustrated product teams. So we decided not to work like that. And instead, the way we work in the Jira Product Discovery team is more that we always try to get a balanced view. And a lot of that comes from conversations with product managers really unpacking their context. Like, what is your company? What's your industry? How did you organize your product team? What are your rituals? What do you struggle with there? And like a lot of stuff like that, which we can't get if you just tell us, hey, listen, what we want is a button to be able to upvote. So we try to build a balanced view via a number of different channels. There is inbound user feedback. Inbound user feedback is when you are in Jira Product Discovery, you click on leave feedback, and you send us a piece of feedback here. This is amazing to get a sense of trends. What are the things that make their way to the top that people mention the most? But it doesn't give us much in terms of context. There is, in the same vein, feedback from support. Now, feedback from support is great because that support telling us like customers are struggling with X, Y, and Z. It's not new features usually, it's more like existing features that we need to improve. Feedback from customer success teams that give us a lot more context around this particular customer, here's what they're facing. Feedback from sales saying, hey, listen, if you built X, Y, or Z, this would help with unlocking this or that particular account. We have surveys when we can ask questions to product managers and get their input to help us prioritize stuff. We have basically this inbound stuff, but then we have stuff that we gather by talking to customers. So a lot of what we do is we look at the feedback that's coming, and then from there we start to identify trends. Then we figure out who to talk to in there based on who gave us feedback and who we know from our past research, and then we schedule user interviews. So you might have received an email from me saying, hey, notice that you've used Jira Product Discovery a lot lately. Here's the link to book time with me if you'd like to talk about your adoption of the product and how we can make it better for you. There's usually a link to book time. It's a little Calendly link, super handy. People book time, it lands in my calendar. There is a Zoom in there. We join the Zoom, we chat for half an hour to an hour. There is so much we learn by doing stuff like that versus just listening to feedback coming in and people's upvotes. And of course, we have feedback that we get from our leadership based on strategic priorities for Atlassian, as well as our user research team that goes much more in depth for some of those topics when people struggle with X, Y, or Z with our entire Atlassian portfolio. So let me show you how that's done for us. And it's pretty simple in a sense. we have a few different channels that we monitor regularly. So in the product team, so we are 4 product managers today. And in the product team, we have a rotation of user support. So everyone on the product team, myself included, every 4 weeks is on support. And what we do is we look at a few different channels. The first one is our feedback queue. And that's this inbound stuff I was talking about. Where does that come from? Well, we built it so it's super simple for you to leave us feedback. If you go to the bottom, you click on give feedback, you put some text here, you send, it lands in our queue. Now, we don't try to answer everyone here, but sometimes when we see something that's quite interesting, we reach out, ask to meet, and then we do a bit more of a unpacking here. But a lot of what we do when we're in this screen is open the Chrome extension from Jira Product Discovery and tag the support, like not the support, but the feedback ticket to a Jira Product Discovery idea in the Jira Product Discovery project. Another place where we get a lot of really good interaction with you is the community group, community.atlassian.com. You can basically write articles, ask questions. We can tell you stuff by posting articles as well. We advertise those in product via little pop-ups. And anytime you see one of those pop-ups, it's what we use is Pendo there. So that's an app that helps you do like guides and targeting. So we can point you to this community group. You can go there and then you can leave comments and we can start to have discussions there. And often it's like when we want to test a feature, we put something in the community group, people comment to go, well, it wouldn't work for me because of X, Y, or Z. And so we can then refine everything we're doing based on that. The third thing that we do a lot as well is every time we do a user interview, which is for each one of us, 3 to 5 a week, we put it in a tool called Dovetail. And Dovetail lets us tag those videos with little moments, and we can tag those and then add those tags to ideas to basically like always be able to go back and get the full context behind all this. It's much more impactful for me to understand you are struggling with, for example, engaging with your stakeholders, because every time you do a roadmap presentation, you need to rework it 50 times, and so you'd like them to be able to weigh in earlier, and that's why you want a vote button, than for you to just tell me, we want a vote button. Because what it helps me understand is, all right, so that means that they struggle with that interaction. How can we fix this interaction? If it's not voting, then what is it? And then we can test those. And finally, in those channels, we also have like a bunch of Slack channels that we use to interface with our sales, support, customer success teams. They come to us with suggestions from customers, things that they have noticed on the field, and we tag those to ideas. All of these things land in our Jira Product Discovery project. So you see that every one of these ideas here has got like a bunch of insights, right? So we don't tag everything, to be fair. We tend to tag the things that teach us something new, an interesting commentary that we hadn't thought about. But, you can't, like not everything is in a roadmap to start with. So what we have actually is we put ideas in Jira Product Discovery, we tag insights to them, and then we discuss those regularly to identify the ones that are making their way to the top, whether they're already part of roadmaps or not part of roadmaps. That is done in this section right here called user feedback, and we've got a bunch of views there. The first view is one that basically shows every idea and the new interesting insights we got in the past week. So it doesn't matter which roadmap they're in, or even if they're in a roadmap or not. What we have is this filter right here that shows only insights created in the past 7 days. So the past 7 days were a bit quiet. If we go in the past 14, we'll see already quite a few more. So in the product management team, what we have is at the end of our support rotation every week, we have a meeting where we do a handover, and as part of this handover, we go over the insights from the past week, discuss those, and then the new product manager for the rotation picks up their shift. Right? So the type of feedback that we get here varies, but usually it gives us a good indication of what we need to improve. So for example, the timeline view is the one that's been getting a lot of feedback lately. So we've been tagging those so that whenever we're ready to pick this up, we are going to look there, sift through it, and then categorize those in buckets and discuss what we do about those. Super handy. Now we have the same view, but this time it's like filtered by type of idea. So boulders, it's okay. Let me. That's the advantage of doing demos at the same time. So which we now call new features. New features basically have their own section, so we can see like if building a new feature is expensive and it needs a full team and so on and so forth. So we want to build the most, like the ones that are going to make the biggest bang for buck. And so we regularly go there and see, okay, so which ones are making their way to the top right now? It sounds like hierarchies is big. Feedback from internal stakeholders, being able to share stuff, collaborating with users and customers. Those are all things that you bring to us, right? But we also have a view which is more, now that we ship something for any idea, every time we ship something, we create a corresponding idea to track potential improvements we can make to it. And so we tag everything that people tell us, hey, this new feature, for example, timeline is great, but I'd like X, Y, Z for it, right? And then we can see here which are the features for which we receive the biggest number of interesting feedback, and then we discuss those as a product team. So in that weekly meeting that I mentioned, we touch on these different things. So that every quarter, what we do is to review our roadmap, right? We meet as a team and we discuss here our themes and boulders. Do we still have the same themes? Do we still have the same boulders? Then each team breaks out, defines their goals for these boulders, and basically figures out what to move in the now, next, or later column of their roadmap, picking from stuff that's not yet in the roadmap, or moving something that was in next into now, or moving something that was in now back to later, for example, because we tried something, an exploration for a solution, we didn't manage to make it work, or we didn't test well with customers, so we're moving it back out. This process is one that we do every quarter, but the roadmaps that each team has are things that we basically review every month, and we make adjustments within the month as well. So it's something that happens pretty frequently. And it's all based on everything that we learn by talking to you and listening to the volume of feedback that's coming in as well, taking those in consideration, mixing that with our business goals, and doing it. You'll notice that nowhere in our project we're using things like priority scores or ratings or RICE, or like we know for many of you it's a great way to build a common vocabulary for as to how you want to prioritize stuff. Our style as a product team is much more conversational and collaborative, centered on user stories, which is why we do it this way. But it's not the way, right? It depends on your organization. If you need to, for example, get more consensus from sales versus support versus PM, it's a good idea to work with those rating fields, for example, and try to get people to spread their bets among things, to focus the conversation on what's the most important for them. So this way of doing things is very contextual to our team and the fact that we have full autonomy and we want to focus everything on user stories. Okay. On this topic of working with users, one question you might ask, yes, but is every piece of feedback equal? No. There is something we started working on when we started Jira Product Discovery, and it's this concept of Lighthouse users. Now, our bet on Lighthouse users when we started was, if we can build it right for the right users that represent who we want to help, it's going to work for everyone else. So that's a bit of a bold bet, because what we basically said is, we're only going to work with, say, 10 users, 10 companies, and we're going to build the app for them. And then we believe it's going to work for everyone else. So that's a bit of a bold bet. We didn't know whether it would help us or not, or whether we would basically end up building a bunch of features that would not apply to 90% of the other customers out there. So instead, what we spent a lot of our time on is recruiting these users. And we looked for a bunch of different attributes, like are they a person of influence and in their company so they can drive change and a great communicator? Do they feel the pain that we're trying to solve a lot? Can they help us understand that pain better? would they be happy to try like half-baked solutions that we might put up until we nail it for them? We wanted to make sure we work with people that think about it in terms not only of tooling and features, but ways of working that can help them solve their problems. And we wanted to make sure we were not focusing on users that came in anchored with how a competing app was doing things, but instead we're using things like spreadsheets, for example, because we didn't want to fall into the trap of seeing the world through the eyes of a competitor. Instead, we wanted to take it from the user's perspective and helping them. Now, there is a great advantage in working with Lighthouse users, and that's why I wanted to mention it in this webinar, which is it helps you move super fast. If we want to build a new feature, talking with 2, 3, 4 of those users is often enough. And we often pivot a roadmap based on the feedback of a single one of these users. Imagine the speed you can get out of it versus having to validate everything with a large number of users. So Lighthouse users is a key recipe for how we build this product. Recruiting them is not easy though, and which is where we focused on a lot of different tactics to make sure that we can find people that really want to communicate with us. So we put like a website where we had this is how we advertise Jira Product Discovery. We said, your job as a PM is hard. We put that on the website. We give them a link to sign up. We said, we want to help. We're working on something. Who wants to work with us? They click join the waitlist. We went on LinkedIn, looked at their profile, looked at how they were using other Atlassian products, looked at what they published online, and then we got in touch with a few of them to start unpacking all this. Sometimes what we do is we go into the user community when we work on the new feature to go, hey, we're about to release a new feature. This is what it currently looks like. We're in the make phase at that stage. Who wants to test this? And then we usually give a link to more work, right? Why do you need this? Give us a bit more details because we want to make sure people really get involved in the process. Based on that, we usually look at the rationale, then we set up meetings, we meet with those people, and then we decide whether or not it's a right fit to be able to test and validate this particular feature. Sometimes we put like little things in the product which are more like surveys to go, hey, by the way, who needs X, Y, or Z? But then there's always like a bit of a quantitative thing. So you could press yes or you press no. We know about it. But then we're going to work with you if you tell us more, right? And we want to listen to what you have to say here because that's really what will guide how we want to evolve the product. It's not how many people have voted for something. It's really understanding the pain that's behind it, the problem you're trying to solve, and seeing how we can find the right solution to help you there. All right. So let's now go into our last section, which is how we deliver, test, and iterate. So discovery is not something that you do on one side and then you're done and you flick a product requirement document off to the other side to engineers and that's it, you're done. Really, when you start writing code, like the work is just getting started. And that's what I wanted to highlight here a bit. What we want is to validate early and often. Remember, half of product ideas will fail, so you need to be able to know which ones will work or won't work as early as possible. So that's what we focus on. We have a few tactics for it. The fact that something goes into explore, so remember we've got wonder, explore, make, impact, scale. Wonder is problem exploration, explore is solution exploration. When we started working with product managers to ask them like, hey, what do you struggle with as a PM? That's what we're trying to get to. We actually put we didn't put products in front of them. We put slides. And we were like, hey, we're currently working on something. This is what it does. Can you tell us more about how you think it would help you? Doing things like this helped us validate problems and potential solutions super fast. Why? Because we can create 10 versions of a slide deck in a single day. Over the next week, meet with 20 product managers and validate all of that. And based on those learnings, iterate on the slide deck and present to the next product manager and keep doing that. Super fast, no code involved, super cheap. The second tactic that we use is prototypes in Figma. So that's when we're further down the exploration path, but still before we write code, we try to create a high fidelity experience in Figma, go into Zoom calls with users and have them play around with the Figma and test different things. Is it usable? Is it seen as valuable? Do people understand what the feature is doing? like, can they tell us back how it's going to help them? Stuff like that. Now, the advantage of doing it there is, I mean, it's a bit more investment than a slide, but it's much closer to the target user experience that we'll get. And we can get a lot of learnings by having people explain in their words, in their world, how it's going to help them. And the last thing that we use is, well, sometimes you got a sheep code, right? But we don't straight away build a feature and release it to everyone. Instead, in the make phase, we tend to first work with like 10 customers, give them access to a feature in super early stage, explain to them that it's early stage, that there's a lot of rough edges, and then we work with them up until it's to the point where it solves their problem, and then we progressively turn it on for more and more customers. We tend to go via stages of 10, 100, 1,000. 10 customers, 100 customers, 1,000 customers, then turn it on for everyone. So now we have a relatively good sense of whether the solution is going to work or not. What we want is to make sure that the team can move fast. And a fast-moving team will basically solve anything. If we move slow, that's basically the end of us. Because if we move slow, we're not able to test fast enough, we're not able to release value fast enough. It's a very competitive market out there. I'm sure you'll find a better app. So momentum and urgency are key for us. And so for that, we have a few collaboration rituals that we use when we build software that we think can help you too. The first one is a one-pager. So whenever an idea goes into the now column, and when we are through Wonder and through Explore, we write this thing called a one-pager that's trying to answer important questions that we want to answer before we decide to press play. Who are we doing this for? What are the problems? How can we validate that? Who are our Lighthouse users for this? And so on and so forth. And this is a document that we use mostly inside the product team with the designers and the lead engineer. And that's something that we build by talking to a lot of users. Then, when we go to the next stage, which is to start writing code, we have a separate document that we use with engineers. So what we do is, it might sound weird because we're from Atlassian, but we in the Jira Product Discovery team don't spend that much time in Jira software to discuss the features. Instead, we go in there to track more at the sprint level. But when it comes to discussing a feature, we've got what we call a live feature document. So this live feature document is usually a product manager, a designer, and a whole engineering team, and we iterate on it week after week. We usually have, for each team, 2 meetings every week of roughly 45 minutes to an hour, where we unpack the scope, decide what we put out of scope, what we bring into scope, how we're going to design a particular bit of the experience, and we look at what we shipped in the last week, we test it together, and we see how we want to build the next increment for it. And that's what we do every week. And we do that in a live feature document with the whole team on it. And the last bit for us to create this momentum and urgency is our demo culture. In each team that is currently working on something, we have demos that guide our planning. So every week we go, hey, let's do a quick demo of what we did in the last week. That's cool. All right, what should be our goals for the demo in the next week? Well, maybe we want to improve that experience. Maybe we want to turn it on for 10 customers. Maybe we want to do this design. So we define those goals, and then another week goes by. At the end of the week, we go back and we look at, okay, so what did we say we would do? All right, let's first do a demo. Cool. So this is what we did. Tick. This is what we didn't do. Let's move that into the following week, and here are our new goals. That's what we do within each team. And then in the Jira Product Discovery overall team, we also have a demo weekly with the whole team. So 40 people in a Zoom, and each team demos what they did or learned in the past week. And that's been amazing to get this sense of how fast things are moving, identify which teams are struggling, which teams are moving super fast, and see how we can learn from each other, as well as get a feel for how the product is evolving there. One thing that you might realize when you look at our Jira Product Discovery project is we don't use the delivery progress field. We feel that for what we're trying to do here and how we do it, it doesn't help us that much. Because the percentage that something is done, it's actually not that useful. What's important for us is how's the experience? Are users using it? Are they adopting it? Do they understand how to how it benefits them. Does it benefit them? Have we validated that? This is the stuff that's important. So we tend to think of it more in terms of it's on track, it's off track, or it's at risk, and there's some commentary around it. But no delivery progress bar. In fact, we rarely go to the end of the backlog on any given epic. At some point we stop when it's good enough. So, quick demo. Back in Jira Product Discovery, I have a few things in make. I'm probably not going to look at something that we're working on now. Instead, let's look at something that we shipped earlier. So if we go in improvements, and yeah, we've got timeline view improvements, for example. So let me open that one. Timeline view improvements, and timeline view improvements is where we get like feedback from how people want it to be changed based on their needs, so which will trigger a whole bunch of conversations. But there was a ticket to start with, which was called timeline view and fuzzy date fields. That was the original idea that we worked on. And as on this idea, what you'll see, sorry, it's our staging environment, so sometimes there are a few hiccups like this one, like not showing media here. All right, so we have the one pager, the live feature document, usually quotes from users, and then a couple of images that represent what we're trying to do here once we've got a good view of the solution. So let me open the one pager and the live feature document. Now the one pager is a Confluence document, right? And what you see here is different sections that try to answer the right questions at the right stage. So for every one pager, we first start with who's going to work on it, how does it fit the broader strategy, what are related projects, and then we have a section for Wonder and a section for Explore. So for Wonder, it's things like what problems are we going after, and we try to describe them as much as possible with user quotes, things we can find online, or like all the learnings that we've got. We try to argue how important these problems are. We try to figure out how our users solve these problems today, and then we try to find Lighthouse users that we want to work with. Then we've got another solution for another section for Explore, and in Explore, that's where we go over potential solutions. Right? And at first it's super hazy, and then over time this document evolves and it gets more and more crisp what we want to ship. Right? So we imagine this kind of timeline view, which is not a Gantt chart where now next letter can turn into like January, February, March, for example. And so we discuss potential solutions there. And there comes a point where we're like, yeah, that's, you know what? That's good enough. And we switch to this. So we have a few of those for which it's ready. And at some point, one of these cards would go in the roadmap from next to now. Then we meet with the engineering team. We do a feature kickoff. We walk over this one pager, and we start a live feature document. And here it's something that's usually like it's kind of a table format, and we go over like we list this is what we think we need to design, test, validate, or ship for this. And so for the timeline view, you'll see that we finally, after a few weeks of iterations, landed on this initial design and something like this for date fields, and then some interactions that we wanted to get to for how people are going to work with these views. And every week, for twice a week, we were going over that together to go, okay, so what do we want in version 1 to test with customers versus what should we push to later, and keep iterating through that together. And every week, based on this and the demos that the team was getting, it's really good way to get a sense for momentum as to how things are progressing. So we do use Jira software as well. So what happens is at the end of this meeting, the engineering team gets together and starts to create tickets for all the things that we discussed in the meetings, adds them to the backlog, and then pulls those into sprints. We review them as well as part of this meeting, but this is not what we center the conversation on. Instead, it's really in terms of product increments on a weekly basis. And that's how we tackle stuff that's in the now column. Each and every one of those right here has a live incident document currently. A live feature document currently. All right, let's get into the last bit of that section. Shipping is really just the beginning. I've seen too many product teams that are focusing on the output, which is okay, we've got this project and then we ship this feature and then that's it, it's done, and we move on to the next one. Problem. That's a problem because remember that fundamental truth, it's going to take many iterations to get the thing right. And so it's no good to ship and forget. Instead, once we've shipped something in this product, we know that it's out there, people will use it, they have a lot of feedback, we need to keep grooming it and understanding if it's still basically delivering on the value. So there's two ways that we think about shipping. And that's a slide from WeForge, which I found was amazing to crystallize the way we've been working so far. There is this concept of safety funnel versus growth funnel. A safety funnel is basically, well, let's start with the growth funnel actually. The growth funnel, it's basically, the funnel is like you have a lot of users that you want to get to discover your app, try it, adopt it, and start paying for it, right? But basically this idea is that you want to get people as quickly as possible to the end of the funnel and to make the funnel as wide as possible. The safety funnel tries to tackle a different aspect, which is you want to make sure that you minimize the number of people who have bad experiences. So when we build a new product or a new feature, we do not ship it to everyone in one go when it's what we call an MVP. That doesn't work. It might not be ready for them, people discover it, don't know how to use it, they're never going to click again if we don't nail it for them. So instead, we take it step by step, as I mentioned. And that's why we work a lot with the early access programs. Right? So as mentioned before, start with 10 companies, get it right, and you work with them. Like we work with them a lot. We speak with them on Slack, on email, on Zoom. So early access programs are first with 10, then with 100, then with 1,000, then turn it on for everyone. It's super important because it helps you get the thing right at the right stage without having to polish too early if you end up figuring out that the solution is not good enough. There are many features that we tried in Jira Product Discovery that we ended up throwing away when we were still testing with a small number of customers. No harm done. Much harder to do if the feature is out for everyone, and even if just a few people use it, it's really hard to pull out. Second advice that I'll give you there, and that's what we use, but I think it applies to most companies out there for the safety funnel aspect. When we ship something, we don't straight away send a blog post, tell everyone it's there. The main reason is we want to give it time to settle, being used by more and more users. And once we feel that, yep, it's ready, feedback is good, adoption is good, there are no bugs that are like super bad, all that stuff, then we tell marketing, you know what, that's it, you can now start promoting this. Which means that there may be like a quarter between when something is actually generally available and when you hear about it from marketing. And that's for that reason, which is we always decouple product and marketing launches. So, but then I often hear product managers asking, yes, but in my company, we want to announce stuff at our user conference, and the user conference is due in 3 months. So how would you do that? Easy. You announce the stuff at the conference, whether it's ready or not. And then what you guide people to depends on the state of readiness. If the thing is ready, take them to your product. If the thing is not ready, take them to a waitlist. They go on a website, they put their email address, they'll be notified when the thing is ready for them. It's going to be a delightful experience then, versus them trying something that's half-baked, half-ready, has incidents, has bugs, and they just won't come back. First impressions are super important. So you can announce at fixed dates, but in that case, you decouple that from when the people actually get access to the experience. And the last thing that we use is whenever something ships, it's not the end. We create an improvement idea and we keep gathering feedback for it, and then we revisit those, which takes me back to this pyramid I talked about before: reliability, improvements, new features. Well, the improvement thing in the middle is where we actually tackle like incrementally improving features that are already out there. So back to a demo. So once we ship something, you see that we've got this improvements view right here in user feedback. And whenever someone mentions something about the timeline view, insights, filtering, field management, matrix view, we basically tag those as insights to the idea, and we review those with the product team regularly. If I show you again this product manager jobs to be done, you'll see that we've got new features and improvements. And you can see here that we're currently working on one of them, and we have a backlog for the ones that we want to tackle after that. Super important for us to do things like that, because shipping is really just the beginning, and it takes many iterations to get things right. Okay, I'm done with the content today. Sorry if it was a bit dense, fast, switching a lot between things, lots of different concepts, but I hope it helps you understand how Jira Product Discovery can help you basically model your process for prioritization, road mapping, working with users, working with customers in the product to support the conversations that you have with everyone in your company. That's really what we want to help you with there. The way we like to think of the product internally is that Jira Product Discovery is a canvas for product conversations. And there are two things that you create in Jira Product Discovery. The first one is your prioritization process. You agree in there what's important and why. And you keep refining it. So it's not like you decide on a process and then, for example, you use rice and you keep using it and that's it. Every time you go into a prioritization cycle, you basically look at it again to figure out whether it's helping you or not. And the second thing that you produce with Jira Product Discovery is, of course, your priorities, so what you're going to work on, and your roadmap that you can share with everyone, seek input, and have basically a roadmap that keeps evolving based on learnings. At our scale, we are able to change the roadmap by a lot every 3 months and incrementally every week or month. And then it really depends on the speed at which you want to ship changes in your company, but the product can support that for you as well. So if you haven't tried Jira Product Discovery yet, I hope this entices you to give it a go. And if you've got any questions, I mean, you know where to find me, right? I have you already pinging me over email, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the community group. Please get in touch. Always love to chat. And yeah, we really look forward to seeing what you're going to create with this product. Thank you.